Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video. Going to have a look at where next week's 10 days in today's first video. This will take us to around the 30th of November. So we're almost ending the month and also ending the autumn of 2017 with this update. So it's going to be very mild in the next 2 or 3 days. Only going to get colder towards the end of the week and the weekend. And I think we're going to have a bit of a wild ride really as we go through to the very end of the month. I think we're going to be closing, out the month with alternating air masses, so at times we'll have some mild days, at times we'll have some quite cold days, as we bring colder snaps in from the north and from the northwest. So it does look like a relatively changeable, certainly end to November, with a lot going on a day-by-day basis. I'll talk you through everything that's happening in the moment. Overall, it does look a bit colder, though, from the weekend through to next week. Going on with that though, just to say that later on today we've got the next Christmas update. I think that's going to be the 9th Christmas update, but it'll be around 7 o'clock this evening on the Christmas updates page. And to go along with that, the Christmas shop is open. So you've got any Christmas shop to do at Amazon between now and Christmas. All you have to do is click the green button that says Gav's Christmas shop. It takes you to our Christmas shop page. And then from there, the key to it all, is to go through the Amazon banners. And once you click through the Amazon banners, you'll arrive at Amazon and you'll be able to Christmas shopping as normal. Because you've gone from Gav's Webs to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you are buying, and a big thank you to everybody for doing that. And also just say that on Friday, got a live event coming up at Southern Quantum. We're going to be talking about the weather live here at the website and on YouTube as well. So that'll be on Friday evening, talking about the current models. Hopefully have some cold weather to discuss, maybe some wintry conditions to discuss. And of course, we'll be talking about the coming winter as well. And also, we'll be taking all of your questions and all of that kind of thing. So I'll talk more about that later on in the week. That will be with you on Friday evening. Right, let's get on with the update, and we're going to start with temperature in the stratosphere at 30 HPA. So the grey line here is the trend line for this time of the year. So it's a cooling time of the year. Temperatures reach their coldest point in the stratosphere at 30 HPA over North Pole around start of January. End of December. The black line shows you where we've been with the temperature through this season, starting back in September. This is where we are right now. We are quite substantially colder than average in terms of the temperature at 30 HPA, which is one of the highest levels of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. If we move through, have a look at 10 HPA, which is even higher up. It's the same idea. The grey line shows us the trend this time of year. The black line shows us where we've been with temperatures at 10 HPA this year. And you see, again, we are cold on average. Not the deviation we've got at 30 HPA, but even so, both levels 10 and 30 HPA are colder than average. When you have cold and average temperatures in the stratosphere, it's usually a sign to be increasing the polar vortex. And what's happened this November, quite interesting, is that we have had a little bit the troposphere, which is the boundary of the actual weather is taking place. We've had the troposphere and the stratosphere kind of at odds with one another. Haven't really seen the intense polar vortex that you would expect to see with such a cold stratosphere. So a little bit interesting what's happened there, the way the troposphere and the stratosphere have not really, yet anyway, may happen as going into December, but so far they haven't really synced up with one another. Having a look at the GFS temperature forecast for 10 HPA over North Pole, so this blue purple area, those are the cold temperatures that we've got at the moment, and we'll have into the end of November at 10 HPA over the North Pole being somewhere around there, of course. Let's run through and see if there's any sign of warming occurring and penetrating into the North Pole. So, get a little bit of warming actually beginning to appear around the Siberian side of the North Pole, but not really penetrating itself into the pole, no sign of that. And this is a very modest sort of warming that's happening there over Siberia in any case. So certainly up to the start of December. This takes us to the 6th of December at the moment with the GFS. Certainly to the start of December, there's no sign of any substantial warming occurring and moving into the stratosphere at the North Pole. Remember, when we get a warming of the stratosphere in the North Pole, particularly if it happens suddenly, a sudden stratospheric warming, where we see the temperature shooting up by many degrees. What happens with a sudden stratospheric warming, I'll just show you, is from where the black line is, we've had a sudden stratospheric warming, the temperature would do something like that. Always looks very dramatic. The black line will go up to there somewhere. Within only around 2 or 3 days. And if we have that going on, if we get a sudden stratospheric warming, that a few weeks later can translate back into the chance of blocking, a blocking area of high pressure developing within the troposphere over the North Pole. Blocking being the route pushing cold air out of the pole and into mid-latitude. So for blocking, we want to see a sudden stratospheric warming occurring during the course of the winter. No sign of that yet, but then it's very early days. These sudden stratospheric warmings get more frequent the further into winter you go. So typically, it's quite unusual to see them in December. You often get them more in January and February, the further on into winter. We'll be keeping an eye on that, of course, over the next few weeks and months. These are 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts for the next 7 to 10 days from the Penn State University website. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet, is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure are being moved around by a jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure, and blue to low pressure. So these are taking us more or less to the end of November, more or less up to the 30th of November. We find that we've got a ridge of above average heights building through the Atlantic and pushing northwards here with the ECMWF, still extending back to this area of above average heights we've got over the pole. That's blocking over the pole. And I just told you that to get blocking, typically you want to see a warm stratosphere, because a cold stratosphere over the North Pole at this time of year will usually go along with enhanced polar vortex. So you'll normally have blue colours here when you've got such cold temperatures in the stratosphere as we've got right now. You normally see blue colours in this area, sort of a deep area of low pressure churning away, and that's the polar vortex, which tends to keep the cold air bottled up, and it strengthens the westerly flow across the Atlantic. As I told you, we are seeing the troposphere. That is where these red colours are. The area of high pressure is in the troposphere over the North Pole at the moment. We're seeing the troposphere and the stratosphere sort of at odds with one another. So we've got the cold temperatures in the stratosphere, but we do have the blocking in the troposphere, which is an unusual situation, and it does explain a lot of the chopping and changing that has been going on, and I assume will continue to go on as long as we have this sort of conflict between the troposphere and the stratosphere. I assume the models will continue to struggle. So that's the other point. Do take all of the output at the moment beyond around 4 or 5 days with quite a large pinch of salt. So anyway, we've got the blocking here with the ECMWF over the pole, and it does extend down to this ridge over Greenland and through the central part of the Atlantic. Underneath and to the east of it, we've got this trough across central and west parts of Europe. So we're doing something like this with the flow, with the jet stream, and the upshot is that the ECMWF, for the 7 to 10 day time frame, is placing us on the cold side of the jet stream. We would be pulling in quite cold air from the north, possibly even northwesterly or northeasterly direction with that kind of setup. And the GFS is very similar. So for the first time in ages, we appear to have the two main models, the ECMWF and the GFS, in sync. So we've got this deep trough again to our east and southeast in the 7 to 10 day time frame with the GFS. At the same time, we've got the ridge in the Atlantic and pushing up towards Greenland as well. It doesn't have the blocking quite centred over top of the pole, such as we see with the ECMWF, but it's very, very similar, only slight differences, and it means that again with the flow and with jet stream we do something like that. So we place on the cold side of the jet with both of these models as we go through the 7 to 10 day time frame. And as I said, that's taken us to the end of November. So expect some colder weather, if this is right, within the next week to 10 days. GFS ensembles looking like this. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. This is for London, by the way. So as I've got around 3 or 4 very mild days to come for the south anyway. So at our peak, which is going to be around the middle part of the week, we're going close to 10 Celsius at 850 HPA. That's very mild indeed. Over weekend into next week, you see we have got a drop in temperature occurring, so it is going to be turning colder over weekend and inside of next week. And then overall, actually, as we go through into sort of the end of the month inside of December, and we see the dates on the bottom of the chart, we're looking like we're staying on the cooler side of average as we're going through to the end of November and into start of December. At the same time, a lot of precipitation coming up as well. So not too much rain falling in the next couple of days, but from the middle and last stage of the week onwards, we have a big area of rainfall spikes going on. Particularly wet, I think, on Friday. Could be a very wet day, possibly even into Saturday across some parts of England and Wales. Before that, the rain is more in the north and the west from today through to Wednesday. So a lot of wet weather to come before the end of November, and then after that we've got quite a few precipitation spikes as well. Looks like it's generally quite a cool and unsettled couple of weeks coming up. If we have a look at the surface temperatures and air pressure for London, so you can see what's going on with surface temperatures. We're mild at the moment, as I say, we're above 10 degrees Celsius. At our peak around middle of the week, we're probably going to get close to 15 degrees Celsius, but then after that you see the temperatures are sliding away. It's a little bit of disagreement about how quickly that slide in the temperatures happens. Some of the model runs are doing it quite quickly. Some of the model runs are delaying that sliding temperature. But we do see that the temperatures are cooling down at the end of the week into the weekend. It's going quite cold in London with temperatures barely scraping 5 degrees there over weekend. And then next week, it looks like we're staying generally quite cool really through into the start of December. And increasing risk of night frost coming through as well over the weekend. That's 0 degrees just there. Increasing risk of night frost over weekend and into next week too. So after the next 3 or 4 days, which are going to be very mild, it does look like we are in for something quite a bit colder. The air pressure looking like this, so quite low with the pressure today at 1,010, going very low through the middle part of the week, going down below 990 millibars. Then a recovery takes place by the end of the week and into the weekend. We start to see temperatures, the air pressure I should say, lifting up. So by the early part of next week, the pressure, for a little while anyway, goes quite high before it begins to drop again as we move to the very end of November and start of December. I think there's a lot of daily fluctuations going on there, so it doesn't really show you the full picture of what's going to happen over the next 10 days with air pressure over the next couple of weeks. I think there will be day-by-day fluctuations taking place between high pressure and low pressure. Temperature anomalies for the next week, this takes us from the 20th to 28th of November, are coming out milder than average, not just the UK, but for many parts of Europe, away from Norway, where it's colder, and Iceland. Most parts of Europe are coming out warmer than average. If this cold snap happens at the end of the week and the weekend, and we get some more colder interludes next week, expect these temperature anomaly charts to trend colder through the week. Precipitation anomalies generally coming out wetter than average. So that's quite a change on what we've had for a while. We haven't really had a very wet period since September. October was a pretty dry month, especially so to the south and the east. It looks like it's going to be pretty wet for the next week from the 20th to the 28th of November. So just having a look at the GFS and the ECM. Finally then, this is how things are on Thursday. We've got a deep area of low pressure to the northwest of Scotland. A lot of wet weather piling in up there for the middle part of the week. Then into Friday, that wet weather is more in the south. So we've got a big temperature contrast here and a very active weather front through that sort of area. Cold air is pushing down from the north, and they've got still that very mild air. It's going to be with us through most of the week down to the south. And the contrast will probably fuel a lot of wet weather at the end of the week. By the time you get through to Saturday, we get rid of that and we are into a pretty cold and showery northwesterly wind. That could bring wintry showers to the northwest. It's funny how at the moment we seem to be getting quite a few cold snaps centering around the weekend, and then in the week it tends to be milder. So that's just one of those funny quirks that can happen with the weather. We go through to Sunday, and that's also looking quite a cold day. Wintry showers again possible with these northwesterly winds in the north. So fairly cold again at the weekend. Early next week, probably turning a bit milder as the wind's back into the west. That doesn't last long, and this low pressure pushes through by Tuesday as it clears away to the east. The wind's turning into the north again. So that's what I'm talking about with a bit of a wild ride as we go through to the end of the month. The temperatures will be up and down, as will the air pressure on a day-by-day basis. So we have quite a cold day on, we have two quite cold days, Saturday and Sunday. We turn it milder on Monday, and then probably back to colder conditions again on Tuesday. And then we're still quite cold with the wind in from the north on Wednesday. And then we get to day 10, which is Thursday, the 30th of November, where we start to build the ridge in from the Atlantic, and wind's beginning to back a bit more to the west. So that's starting to bring slightly milder air back in around the top of this high pressure from off the Atlantic. Very, very up and down with the temperatures as we close out the month. Eastern air finally, so again a lot of wet weather in the north and west around middle of the week. There could be gales or severe gale force winds, by the way, for some southern and western parts of the country sometime around Thursday, so that's something else to watch out for. Friday, so again we've probably got some sort of trailing front here. I think it's a bit further south than we see with the GFS, but it is there. There is potential really quite wet weather even in the south at the end of the week. Into the weekend, there comes those cold winds again from the north and northwest, so expect wintry showers in the north and the west with a chance of night frost becoming more widespread over the weekend again as well. Into the early part of next week, there's that low pressure that's backing the winds around to the west on Monday, so Monday could be a slightly milder day, but the ECMWF is a bit colder for Monday actually than the GFS, and then as that clears out of the way on Tuesday next week, we're turning winds back into the north again. So a bit milder again on Monday with some rain, possibly some snow in the north coming in with that low pressure, and then as that low pressure clears away on Tuesday, winds swing back into the north and it turns colder again. Then we go through to day 10, when again we are having this ridge out to our west. We begin to back the winds a little bit more westerly, so milder air is starting to roll in around the top of that ridge. By day 10, we'll be turning milder in the north and west. The south is probably still quite cold, actually, but if we ran on another couple of days or another day, I suspect all areas will be in milder temperatures. Quite a deep low pressure up there. Not sure what that would do, but if it went in that sort of direction, after a couple of milder days later next week, we might turn the winds back into the north yet again through the first week of December. So it is a wild ride over the next 10 days, final 10 days of November. We're going to be alternating the air masses. Next 4 days, 3 or 4 days, looking very mild, but the end of the week will bring a colder shock down from the north, probably that lasting into the weekend. Early next week, I suspect it's going to get a bit milder for a day or two, and then we're back to colder conditions by the middle part of next week. So, alternating the air masses, and because it's a cooling time of the year, of course, as each of these northerly shots comes through, they probably get more and more potent, and the wintry potential with them probably increases as well. So if we do start to get some northerly shots in December, then we can really start thinking about the possibility of bringing some proper wintry showers, proper snow showers in with those northerly winds. That's if we're still in this pattern in December. Alright, that's all for now. Don't forget to check out the next Christmas update this evening, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.